The New York Mets got off to a quick start to the 2019 season, going 5-1 on their opening road trip. But a quick start is not unfamiliar territory for this team. Remember, they started 11-1 on the season last year after starting the 2018 season against the St. Louis Cardinals. But will this be the year that the end results are just as impressive as the start? What's up, everybody? I'm Tara Wellman. Welcome back to another series preview. The St. Louis Cardinals finally, mercifully, leave Miller Park behind and head to Busch Stadium, where they will meet the New York Mets for the first time this season. Joining me to discuss all things Mets, including what is going on with their pitching and is Pete Alonso for real? Baseball Prospectus writer Roger Cormier. Roger, it has been a year plus since we last talked. The Cardinals and the Mets opened the season last year, and that was the very first series preview. So a little bit of nostalgia circling back to it at this point, but thanks for joining me again.
Thank you for having me again. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of letters asking where your wonderful first guest of 2018 came from, and you finally got them. I don't know why the post office is so slow, but in Missouri, but what are you gonna do? I'm glad it finally got around.
Got to give the people what they want. Really, is what we're
You have
trying
to.
to do.
They will complain, and they.
I mean, they'll complain anyway, but that's the
right.
internet.
I am familiar a little bit about the internet. Yes.
Yeah. So the Mets. Where do we start? I feel like it was a bit of a frustrating off-season for Mets fans. Maybe because, like a lot of people, a lot of teams, it felt like there was a lot more that could have been done that wasn't done. So is that fair to say that it was kind of frustrating?
Yes. It's interesting. If you judge them on a curve, the curve being the rest of Major League Baseball, they did pretty well. Most fan bases would say, why didn't they do X or Y? And the answer seems to be, money. Like, we like money. We like to hold on to our money. Also, we're never telling you how much money we actually make. So just forget about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, the luxury tax isn't a hard salary cap, but also it's not a salary cap. What are you talking about? What's the luxury tax? Stuff like that. But, there's always skepticism, Brody Van Wagenen, former agent, and you wonder, okay, did they just do that because they'll think the Wellpots think they'll have an advantage in negotiating contracts? The wheels turn with that. But I don't know. It was a pretty good offseason. They built depth, which was a huge problem for the team, and sure enough, already it's beneficial because Todd Frazier and Jed Lowry haven't played a game yet. And the Robinson Cano Edwin Diaz deal, it's pretty cool, especially Edwin Diaz, seeing that he's like, wow, this guy is really, really good and very cheap for the Mets so far. So it was exciting, but it's always cautious optimism for any smart Mets fan. And yeah, but it would be fair to say that it was frustrating, much like it was frustrating for every fan base except the Phillies and the Padres and I guess the Angels.
Exactly. I think the big fish of Bryce Harper and Manny Machado kind of made it frustrating for a lot of people, regardless of what the end result was. Even Cardinals fans were frustrated, and they ended up with Paul Goldschmidt. So that tells you the level of frustration, I think, built around two players.
Right. Well, Goldie's really good, and you signed him to an extension before the extensions were really cool. So that's a plus for you guys. You helped set a trend.
Yeah, a weird trend, but a trend nonetheless.
A trend that benefits the owners somehow. I don't know. That's so weird.
It is strange, and every time I say that, I get a lot of pushback from people saying, well, they signed the contracts, and it's millions of dollars for them, and it's, yes, however, who's benefiting more in this deal? That is where this comes full circle, but I don't know. That's a much deeper dive.
Well, no, it's just hard to explain to people who make $80,000 a year, $40,000 a year, $20,000 a year. No, you should feel sympathy for the players making millions of dollars a year. They should be making a lot more.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for sure to convince people of that. But anyway, that's a whole another conversation for another day. Back to the Mets. With everything that
Fine.
went on in the offseason,
Yes.
pretty good start.
Pretty good
Were
start.
you able to at all buy into that start as things that could be, I don't know, maybe not maintained at that level, but good things that you could see developing into some kind of consistency with this team, or was it just a hot start?
Well, last year the Mets started 11-1 and 12-2, and then it went. I
Yeah.
can't whistle right now. It's too early in the morning. I'm sorry. Sorry. You'll have to just imagine that I whistled perfectly. Maybe in post you could
I'll see what I can
add
do.
up the whistle. Playing go down. So this year, it's weird because they're 10-8, like your Cardinals. They're in second place, but it seems I feel more optimistic than I did around this time last year. It just seems more sustainable because Edwin Diaz was not here last year. Jeff McNeil was not here early last year, and he just keeps hitting. All the stats say that his BABIP should be below 800 or whatever it is, but he got two infield hits yesterday, and it's like he's Ted Williams and a squirrel combined. And Pete Alonso was not here last year, and his power is real. And you trust that he's a highly rated prospect, so there's a chance his strike zone will keep expanding, and maybe he'll strike out too much. But right now, he's looking really good. Um, and the Mets are 10-8, and they have the worst ERA in the National League, which is so unlike the Mets. Even when they're bad, they have good pitching. So you'd think that will turn around. And with all that in mind, um, there is optimism that they could maintain at least an above 500 season, or not.
We'll see,
There is.
right? It's way too early to tell
It's way
what's
too
going to
early,
happen.
but there is optimism.
Yeah, it's nice when you see some of those little things you can hold on to and say, okay, well, that's actually different than it was last year. That's actually better than it was last year. You mentioned a couple of those hot hitters. We'll talk about that in a minute. But as you said, it's always pitching for the Mets, right? So let's
Yeah.
talk about the pitching that the Cardinals will see in this series. Looks like it's going to be Vargas, DeGrom, and Syndergaard. When you have DeGrom and Syndergaard both going in one series, you likely feel pretty good about that, but it hasn't been that simple to start the
No.
season. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways we could go with that trio of starting pitchers. I'll let you pick where we start.
DeGrom, is very interesting. He actually looks human this year. Turns out he's had strep throat. He might not even. He was bumped from Friday because of that. He might not even pitch Saturday. Instead, it might be Steven Matz. The good news is he didn't. He's fresh. The bad news is for Mets fans, it's because he didn't record a single out in his last start on Tuesday in Philadelphia.
Not great.
Right. So, which made Jason Vargas look a lot better in comparison because he got one out in his last start.
I was going to say, that's hard to do right now. Make him look better.
Yes. Well, so Steven is a good teammate, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way. I don't know. It's interesting. Vargas, he did improve in the second half last year when nobody was watching. But still, he's obviously the weakest link in the rotation. There's a lot of talk about, hey, Dallas Keuchel's still available. Why don't you get Dallas Keuchel?
I'm very familiar with that conversation.
Yes, but the Mets could really use Dallas Keuchel. Jason is, I believe, in his final year of a 2-year contract. It wouldn't be a huge ask to send him to the bullpen. So yeah, he's starting Friday, and with DeGrom before the strep throat was made public. There's a lot of talk. Maybe he's tipping his pitches. Pitcher coach Dave Eiland literally said, "Hell no, that's not why." And he said there's some timing mechanism. There's some talk that DeGrom's slider is going too fast, so there's not much differentiation in speed with his fastball, and so hitters are timing it better. It was really disturbing. That might be too strong of a word, disturbing, but to me it was to see very few swings and misses and batters hitting home runs off of Jacob
Yeah,
DeGrom.
that's not supposed to happen.
No, and Milos Nicholas, is that how you pronounce this?
Michaelis, yeah.
It's Michaelis is supposed to face DeGrom Saturday, and I was thinking about he's the Lizard King, right?
Yes, I have been told he actually doesn't like that nickname, but it's hard to get away from eating a
But
live lizard.
yes, and this matchup is a matchup of players with poor diets. He ate a lizard, and DeGrom, I believe, still has McDonald's a lot, and he's a freak of nature who looks like he does, but it's really disturbing. He's a father of two now. Just
Really
take
gotta
care of
step it
yourself.
up. Yeah.
He got the extension now. Maybe he'll double down
There you
and
go.
just have
There you go.
second big back. But right. So that's something to look out for. But then again, I'm just like piling on data here. More useless than the next. But DeGrom is still Sunshine Superman, as Gary Cohen puts it. He has the best daytime ERA in baseball history, and Saturday's game, I believe, is in the afternoon. So that's something to look out for, I guess. I was fascinated by that stat.
I love those mostly probably meaningless stats,
Yeah,
but also maybe not.
right. And you'd think like after he became a father, he'd get less sleep, and maybe he wouldn't be
Right.
as good today. But no,
You would think.
he's
He's immune to the lack of sleep
he's
or
a reverse
something.
vampire. So,
Yeah.
I was,
What about Syndergaard? Because also not the typical Syndergaard start for him as well. Is it the hair? Is it the like putting the hair back? I mean, that just to me, like I'm a hair person. That's the first thing I
right.
see.
Yes, you have hair.
I do. Yes.
More hair than I. Yeah, yeah, he has the ponytail. He's been or like the double ponytail kind of thing. It's
It's
I
not a good
feel like
look. Let's just. I mean,
I
it's not
know. And
great.
unfortunately, he's the kind of person that I think the more he's told it doesn't look good, he'll keep doing it as
That's a
well.
shame.
Might be Game of Thrones being back after 2 years. He's a big Game of Thrones guy, and maybe he was just thinking about the show and the season premiere the other night. It is weird with Syndergaard. I don't know. He's kind of underrated. It's funny because players think he's overrated, other than Bryce Harper, but that's because of his brand. But once you see Degrom, you take pitchers for granted a little bit. Syndergaard's been really consistent. So when he gave up 5 runs in 5 innings, I believe that was strange. I guess he'll be fine. I'm not worried about him as a pitcher. The ponytail's another story. Um, yeah, no, Syndergaard should be okay. You should fear him as a pitcher.
I
Yes.
want to circle back, as most people do. I know Cardinals fans do. I want to circle back to Vargas for a quick second because I mean, obviously the massive ERA is what most people are going to notice. But what is there something that's been specific that's been the problem for him? Is it just command? Is it not having the stuff that he's capable of, or is he just not that good anymore?
I think a lot of his it's important to have control with him. He's not going to blaze a fastball by you. I don't think he ever was able to do that. So it's very, very important his timing on his windup, and either it's decent, it's good, it's passable, or it's terrible. It's his 14 ERA for the season. Yeah, like he had a terrible start last year. He was injured during spring training, and then he just never. It took until June or July maybe to get the timing right. So yeah, he's just not good anymore. I guess is what would
That's
be
what it
fair
boils
to
down
say.
to, right?
Yeah, but occasionally he'll just show up and throw a quality start, and you're like, oh come on, especially if you're rooting for a team that is facing him. Like, oh, but it does happen.
Every once in a while, he'll figure something out. Okay, so bullpens tend to be very uncomfortably inconsistent this time of year in particular because everyone's still trying to figure out their roles and where they're going to pitch and how that's all going to play out, especially if there's any trouble with the starting rotation, which Cardinals fans are very familiar with, how that plays into what happens in the bullpen. You mentioned Diaz. Maybe let's start there because he's really good. And it's nice to, when, maybe a lot of other things aren't going well, have that guy that you know what he's going to do, you know what he's capable of, and he's doing it.
Yes, Sugar is better than advertised. Sugar is his nickname. But of course, even when we have a good thing, there's a problem. Apparently, we found out after a win. This was a big win against the Phillies, one of our 17 division rivals. Mickey Calley did not bring him in an obvious bases loaded, two outs situation, up by one run. He didn't bring him in a tie game in the ninth. Didn't bring him in a tie game in the 10th. All smart people say yes, you bring in your closer in a tie game on the road in the ninth and 10th inning. But no, he waited until the 11th inning when they had a one-run lead. It turns out that it's not even Mickey Calley's decision, but it's the front office decision that he cannot go more than 3 outs. He's not going to be tasked for more than 3 outs, even though he has done that before in his career. He says he's okay with it, but not until the postseason. Never mind that the Mets, might not make the postseason. But so yeah, that was disturbing on 2 levels. I'm usually disturbing way too much, but anyway, that there's this limits. He had a when he was drafted in 2012, they found a slight tear in his shoulder, I believe, but it hasn't affected him. So until it affects a pitcher, you don't worry about it. But it's worrisome that they're worried about it. And it's worrisome that our manager, who's supposed to be analytically inclined, doesn't believe in bringing in your closer on the road in a tie game.
Yeah, that was a very strange developing story when I saw it, and when
And
you
you're
have
like, I'm going to ask Roger about it. Yeah.
exactly, I was like, yes, this is great. We can talk about this. We can work
He's
it
gonna
out.
get wound
And
up.
then when the Mets inevitably watch this, they'll be like, oh, that's what we should have done.
Yeah.
No, but it was strange to see it developing, because when you have such a good thing, you obviously want to protect that to some extent, but you can also, I think, get a little too aggressive in the preventative. Sure. We're saving this for when we see teams do this with young pitchers in the starting rotation, where they're like, oh, we're gonna limit their innings, or we're not gonna pitch. I mean, there are some very specific examples you can.
Well, no. Terry Collins, the previous Mets managers, that notoriously ran relievers to the ground, destroyed them by trusting them too much.
As did Mike Matheny, former Cardinals manager.
Yes,
I understand.
I've noticed the trend. Former manager.
That's probably a reason they didn't last that long.
But in any event, right. But I could see that as an edict from above for a Terry Collins. Mickey doesn't have that problem as much, at least not as severe as Terry. So I still think it's kind of silly.
Yeah, it's a weird place to draw such a hard line. Like, this is a thing that's never going to happen, because, like you said, cool, you want to save that for the postseason, great. What happens if you miss the postseason by a game or two that could have turned out differently because he got a 4-out save instead of throwing somebody else? It all just gets very fuzzy.
It's too risk averse.
Yeah.
It can be frustrating.
For sure.
Also, to find out after a game that's been the edict for the whole season, that's a little 3 weeks in. Oh, Mickey said that he said it before.
By the way,
I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. I didn't see anybody say, "Oh, actually," he said. No, nobody.
Yeah, good try, but I feel like something like that would have been discussed prior to that moment.
Right.
But he is still very good. What about the rest of the bullpen? Because sometimes that mix gets a little weird, especially when the starting pitching isn't what it needs to be, and that just sort of, it's a domino effect, and everything gets a little off kilter.
Well, Jeurys Familia signed early in the offseason, hometown discounts, and, there's one way of looking at it, like, wow, our former closer, and he's going to be our 8th inning guy. But he doesn't have it so far this year. I think his ERA is near 6, and that's frustrating. He's been working with Dave Island. Like a few years ago, he stopped using his most dominant pitch, and then he stopped being dominant. I think he.
Weird.
Yeah, he I think it was because it was the Warvid slider partially, somewhat of some hybrid of that, and every other pitcher who used the Warvid slider got hurt. So I think he's like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And he had a blood clot thing. I don't think it was related, but on his arm. So I don't know. He's not as reliable as he used to be, and Mets fans just have agita no matter who the closer is. Eventually, they will even thread with Diaz. So there's a lot of a lot of lack of confidence in Familia right now. So before the ninth inning, and it will be the ninth inning apparently, not before. There's a lot of trouble. Seth Lugo's not been dominant, but it's good that he could eat up multiple innings, and he's consistent enough. And the same with Robert Gazelman. Those are two good weapons, and sometimes they are taken for granted, but they're not exactly dominant either. They're not sure things. So no, but every team's bullpen, every fan base's bullpen has issues. But I will point out again that the Mets have the worst ERA in the National League right now, and that includes Edwin Diaz, who I believe hasn't given up a run yet. Yeah. Or he has, like it was when it was comfortable and he didn't blow a save or anything. It's like he knew.
Right.
It's like
it was okay. You could just, step off a little
bit. Let me try this out. Why not? I'm Edwin Diaz.
See what happens.
Yeah.
The Cardinals bullpen has been an interesting process as far as developing who goes where, because they went into the year. It's very strange because we went into the year feeling like the starting rotation was going to be the strength. The bullpen could be, but was kind of an unknown. And it's really sort of flipped. The starting rotation has really struggled, and the bullpen has saved the day in a number of instances. I mean, they've got guys like John Gant and John Brebbia, who are not names that anyone in baseball knows. But
John Gant was in the Mets system,
there you go. So Mets fans are at least potentially familiar with John Gant, who also cut his hair. This is my soapbox, and I have to mention it every time. He showed up to winter warm up 2 winters ago, which was like the fan fest thing for Cardinals fans. I think it was warm up. It might have been like the Cardinals Caravan, which is the traveling version of that. Anyway, off season, showed up with like romance novel, gorgeous hair. Showed up to spring training and had buzzed it all off. It was the most devastating thing I've ever seen in my life.
What was his excuse? Because it's hot in Florida, maybe it's
there wasn't really a good excuse, which I think is why it still bothers me. It's just kind of like, I just decided to change it up.
Off topic, but not at all. What do you think of DeGrom's beard? Because that's new.
I think, so here's the thing about the beard. The hair is just so distracting to me, that weird ponytail thing that's going on, that like...
with Syndergaard, yeah.
Oh, with Syndergaard, yes. With DeGrom's beard.
But DeGrom's beard is new, that's why.
Yes, it's, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the beard. Yeah.
Well, it's not working for him on the field so far.
That's true. That's true. See, like Syndergaard with the ponytail, maybe the beard is what's throwing up DeGrom.
It might be. He doesn't need... DeGrom doesn't need the beard consistently, because, like, I need the beard because I need a jawline, which I don't have without it. So I don't understand it. He's just showing off, really.
John Brebbia, the other of the Cardinals' solid relievers right now, does this thing every year where he shaves off his beard before the first game of the season and then doesn't shave for the remainder of the season. Right. He pitched in Japan this winter and had like this weird braided, twisty, like gnome beard thing going on. I was a big fan of that, but I am a big fan of the way that he pitches, so I guess I'll allow it. If it works, it works.
It works, and it's probably fun to see as the year progresses, to show how time passed.
Exactly.
Like how you see someone years later and now they're wearing glasses or something.
It's like a very slow time lapse. You can show a picture of him every day, and you can tell what point in the season we were based on how much of a beard there is.
At the end, he has the beard down to his belly button, and you're like, were we ever that young in March?
Yeah. Back in the olden days. But anyway, hair or beards notwithstanding, John Gant and John Brebbia have been solid. Jordan Hicks has been great. Andrew Miller is still a bit of a mystery for the Cardinals, which is very frustrating, but I gotta say, not totally unexpected. I was a little
Right.
concerned about him kind of returning to form. And then there have been some guys in and out of the bullpen for the Cardinals that have pitched some significant innings, but maybe aren't the ones really holding down the fort at this point. But it's guys that maybe could have had different roles. John Gant almost won a starting job out of the spring. They put him in the bullpen, and he had the team's first win and the team's first save, because that's a thing that you expect out of a guy in the bullpen. Just weird stuff. My point is, bullpens can be complicated, and trying to gauge them at this point in the season, I think, is very difficult. One thing the Cardinals pitching staff does have a bit of a problem with is that they're very, very right-handed. Not a lot of left-handed ability. So when they face teams with strong left-handed hitting, it becomes a bit of a problem. So let's talk
Oh,
about hitting.
okay. Yes. The Mets are hitting,
They
which is
are,
also weird.
yeah. So you mentioned McNeil and Alonso.
Yes.
I had many people ask me to ask about them because basically the question is, are these guys for real?
Jeff McNeil's nickname before Squirrel came about from the players was Jeff the Real Deal McNeil. So it's right in the name.
You can't question it.
You cannot question it. It rhymes with his surname. Yeah, like I said with McNeil, you'd think that eventually he'll regress, which he will a little bit. He's hitting 430 or something right now. But yeah, but the teams are like, okay, smart guy, we're gonna shift on you. We're gonna shift hard. We're gonna shift like he's like, and as they're speaking, he hits the ball for a double down the left field line. Him and his knobless bat. He's a freak in the best way possible. He hasn't hit a home run this year. Power's not coming yet. So I guess that's something you could hang your hat on with that. But yeah, he should be a leadoff hitter. Brandon Nimmo has a stiff neck. He might not play this weekend, and you'll see McNeil at leadoff where he should be. Pete Alonso, the polar bear. That's his nickname apparently for the players. Yeah, the power is real. He hit a home run. The power is real. He hit a home run, the seventh hardest hit home run in history, asterisk Statcast era. The top six are all Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge home runs, to put it in perspective, and as are 8, 9, 10 in the top 10 list.
And then right there in the middle, Pete Alonso.
Polar bear. He has infectious energy. I remember in a come from behind win at home, Alonso was just when he hit a double, he's just yeah. And when Michael Conforto did the same, Conforto's usually a stoic guy. He was like yeah. So that's interesting. Is he for real? I think he is. But don't quote me. Well, you can quote me on that, but. If you could quote me on that, if there was you have the ellipses in there, ... I think he is, question mark. I actually got to interview him last year when he was in Double A, and he has a good head on his shoulders for a young man. I could say that he is a much younger man than I, and much stronger and much better at baseball. I don't know. Yeah, you see, like pitchers are now starting to figure him out. They're getting the scouting reports, and that's interesting when a player first has to make his first big adjustment in the big leagues. So we'll see about that. Jeff McNeil has had more time. He was called up in the middle of August last year, I believe. So Pete hasn't. Pete started this season. So we'll see. Might have a terrible weekend this weekend, but he might pick it back up. That's part of the fun of the game, along with seeing hair grow on players throughout the season. It's also seeing the young guys. How are they going to face their first piece of adversity?
Yeah, I always find it really interesting to see how they make adjustments, because that's when you can really start to tell it's not just about talent, but there's the mental capacity to kind of think their way through
Absolutely.
what's going on and figure it out from there too. That's when it gets really exciting.
Absolutely, and I think he's somebody who could do that.
Yeah, that's it's
both physically and mentally.
And that's the battle, right? Is putting that together, putting those two
Those are
things
the top
together.
two.
Yeah. um, someone who maybe isn't putting it together at this point. Questions on Twitter about Robinson Cano.
Yes.
Obviously came over in that move that brought in Diaz, but not great so far. What is the actual expectation for him? Because I feel like because he's Robinson Cano, everybody has expectations, but what is realistic for him at this point? And someone asked on Twitter, should they keep him on their fantasy team?
Right. Well, I'm so nostalgic today. Opening day in Washington, Robinson Cano hit a home run. Jacob deGrom went 6 shutout innings. Edwin Diaz with the save. It was
Perfect storm.
chef kiss. No. And ever since, except for Mr. Diaz, there's been issues. Robinson Cano, the Pacoda, Zips, they all said that he'll become an albatross for the Mets and for keeper league owners in a few years. Not now. He'll still be pretty good. Statcast says he's been one of the more unlucky hitters so far this season. I think he's like the 36th unluckiest out of 390 batters or something like that in terms of expected weighted on-base average. And but I checked, I looked into it, and his exit velocity is down than it usually is for him. His strikeout rate is way up. It's at 24%, like his jersey number. That's how I remembered. But that's not good. No. But it's you could say it's small sample size. It's a few weeks in. Maybe he'll turn around. If I were the fantasy owner, I wouldn't release him. Maybe you could swing a trade for him. But if not, I'd hold on to him a little longer. I don't think it's time to get rid of Robbie just yet.
There you go. There's your fantasy update on this series preview. With these games for the Cardinals at Busch, been a bit of an up and down start for both of these teams. But for the Mets in St. Louis, what do you feel like is the key to this series for New York?
Pitching.
I figured that was going to be the obvious answer.
I know. But yeah, pitching, because they are hitting. So yeah, it has to be the pitching. It has to, I don't mean to be harsh on Mr. Vargas, but he has to last more than 1/3 of an inning this time.
That seems fair.
I think that seems fair because the Mets are running out of schlubs to eat 6 innings and then send back to AAA. So yeah, they're going to need length from their starters and their starters to keep them in the game, which isn't that hard lately because the Mets are scoring a lot of runs. So weird to say.
You hesitate every time you say it, right? They're scoring runs? What?
Those words separately make sense, but combined in that order.
Awesome. Well, I always appreciate your information on the Mets. You're writing about a lot of baseball these days. Where can people find all of the things?
Well, all the things. You can find me usually every Thursday at Baseball Prospectus, part of their wonderful short relief series, column, whatever you call it, feature, way of life, really. So many great writers there. For some reason, they stuck me in. They needed some warm bodies. And I'm on Twitter at YAYRoger. It's mostly Mets stuff, but I've been checking out the Padres a lot lately. I wrote about the Padres today. They seem cool. And the Cardinals, yes.
Begrudgingly.
Begrudgingly, the Cardinals. I end up, you know how it is. You fire up MLB.TV at 7 or 6, and then, it's 2 in, and the Dodgers need 15 innings to win this game somehow. And you end up watching pretty much every team. So that's my life.
As it happens.
Yeah, that's my life. And, my witticisms and quotes you can find on there. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time again today.
Thank you very much. Hopefully it won't be another year until...
Yeah, agreed. You all know that there is plenty of history between Cardinals fans and Mets fans, so I appreciate Roger setting aside his disdain for the Cardinals to help me break down this series. Make sure that you are following him on Twitter. I promise he's a great follow, even if you're not a Mets fan. But I do want to know, we talked about hair because that's what I do. Do you like the Syndergaard ponytail thing that's happening? Do you like the DeGrom facial hair? Do you think that you would be superstitious enough as a baseball player to change up the look if it wasn't working for you on the field? Let me know in the comments below. And make sure that while you're hanging out near the comment section, you go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more videos like this, daily game recaps, weekly series previews, and more. And make sure you check out birdsontheblack.com for additional analysis. I think that's all I have to say. Until next time, I'm Sarah Wellman.